Hey everyone, I'm Tom and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about my reading plans for the month of May, and this year is just absolutely flying by. As always, this is a highly aspirational TBR, and some of this will depend on how much I end up finishing in April. I still have a couple books I want to finish, but they're all really short, so I think I might be able to actually finish them in April before they bleed over into May, but you can check out the wrap-up to see what I actually finish or don't finish in April. But let's go ahead and talk about what I'm hoping to read. And we'd have a very interesting mix of stuff this month, a mixture of fantasy, sci-fi, thrillers, just a bunch of good stuff. So the first thing I want to mention is Stormed Fortress by Janie Work. This is book 8 in the Wars of Light and Shadow. And this is actually the first one I don't have a physical edition for. I tried to get a mass market paperback and it was like super expensive, like 44 bucks. So I will probably just be reading the ebook version of it for now, which is totally fine. That's actually how I end up reading most stuff. I like to read at night a lot, so I end up reading on the e-reader anyway, but it is nice to have the physical book, so I'll have to keep an eye out to see if I can see that price come down some. But yeah, this is the, like I said, 8th book, and it is crazy. We are really moving towards the end of the series, and it is just, I mean, I feel like there's still so much that is going to happen in this story, and so much has already happened. So I'm very excited to see this one. And see what happens. I've heard just a little bit about this one, that it's really kind of a siege story, so that should be interesting. I haven't really read a whole lot of those, but I think if anybody can do it well, it'll be Janie, because everything she writes is pretty amazing. And yeah, we'll just keep moving through that series. I do think that this book will probably take me 6-ish weeks to finish. I really enjoy reading this series slowly. I get more out of it when I take my time with it. I'm a little bit more deliberate with it than some of the other stuff that I read. And it just, it asks a little bit more of you as a reader while you're going through it, the way it is written. And so I'm planning for that to bleed into the next month, not just in May, which I think is a good thing for that series overall. So that will be kind of one that hangs around for a little while. Next up is another fantasy book, and this is actually to end out a trilogy, and that is Sword Saint. This is book 3 in the Empire of Salt trilogy. This is book from Genghis Khan, huge champion of this series, and so I definitely want to finally finish it. I have really enjoyed this series so far. It is super fast-paced, which is kind of sometimes an adjustment with some of the other fantasy I read. If you are kind of tired of fantasy that it feels like everything is super long and drawn out, this is absolutely the series for you. The first book covered as much plot as a lot of books take a trilogy to do. And these are also very short books. I think the entire trilogy is 900 pages, so like averaging about 300 pages each. It's a nice change of pace when it comes to fantasy, and so I'm curious on how this is going to go. I think this is going to be kind of a clashing of worlds and everything, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that and finishing out that series and seeing what I think of it once it is all said and done. I know Ben, this is like one of his favorite series, I think, so I'm curious on the ending there. Now, to completely change up genres, I don't know if this technically counts as like a historical fiction or if this is just like lit fic, but I am planning on reading Butcher's Crossing by John Williams. This is the same author that wrote, I think a lot of people a couple years ago read Stoner by the same author, and I would like to read that at some point. But I'll be honest, video games have kind of been something I've been playing a little bit more recently. Red Dead Redemption 2. I know it's a super old game, but I actually never played it when it came out. And that cowboy vibe is something I'm kind of going for a little bit. And this is, I don't know if I want to say this is a Western book. I think it really just kind of deals with like buffalo hunting and stuff. But I feel like it might have that outdoorsy expansion kind of feel to it that Red Dead has, that kind of battle between the openness of nature and the not exclusion, the escalation of like cities and modern society and all of that stuff. So I'm very interested to see what kind of vibe I get from that. I had some people tell me that I should probably just like start with Stoner if I want to experience John Williams as a writer, but Butcher's Crossing is one that has really been calling to me more. So that is why I'm going to start there. And I think it is just going to be a nice change of pace. It's not going to be very similar to anything that I have read recently, which is good because, I don't always want to be reading the same thing over and over again. Speaking of that, we're changing genres again, and here is a sci-fi book, and that is Flybot by Dennis E. Taylor. This author is much better known for his Bobbyverse series. If you have read Project Hail Mary and you're looking for something similar to it, check out this author. His Bobbyverse series is amazing. I always have a really good time with it. It's one of my favorite series probably of all time, and he's still actively working in that series, but he has some other stuff, and I think this is one of the few that I have not read yet. I think this came out last year, and I think it ends up having something to do with AI, which makes me maybe not as excited as I originally was for this, but I have enjoyed everything I've read from this author. So he's just kind of one of those ones that when I'm looking for a spot to fill in my reading and I have something from him, he fits very well. And the reason I say I might not enjoy it as much because of the AI stuff is I'm just a little AI'd out. I deal with it a lot at work. I just hear a lot about it because I'm in tech. And so it's just kind of like a constant like bubble that I'm in of just like AI. But we'll see how Flybot is. I don't know if it's supposed to be, I think it's a rogue AI. So that can be fun. That can be different. I mean, who doesn't like a Terminator or something like that? Or a HAL, is it a HAL 6000, 3000? How? 2001: A Space Odyssey. Read it a long time ago. But yeah, so we'll see how Flybot goes. I think I'm going to enjoy it because Dennis E. Taylor has always been an author I have really enjoyed quite a bit. And then the last thing I plan to read, and outside of Storm's Fortress, this is definitely the longest one. And this was one of my most anticipated books of last year. And I just kept pushing it off because so much stuff came out towards the end of last year that I wanted to read. But it's finally time to get to The Secret of Secrets, which is such a silly name for a book. I couldn't really think of a good cover, so I just threw that at myself. I couldn't really think of a good cover, so I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed with myself on that one. But this is the new Dan Brown book in his Robert Langdon series. That's like the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, that series. And I have always had a really good time with these. They're page turners. I mean, you talk about a book and a writer who just makes you want to keep going and keep going. The book is always written to be super digestible. Every chapter is like, I don't know, a long chapter in a Dan Brown book feels like it's 8 pages, which is great because it's easy to go through and stop because you're always kind of at a chapter, but it's also like a little bit of a cliffhanger at every chapter that you just kind of want to keep going and going and going. And so this is another, it's weird for me to call it a series because even though it is a series, it isn't, because I feel like events don't always like have the impact that they would. And just, I don't know, there's just some fun stuff with it. This isn't like the highest literary work of all time, but it is something that I really enjoy. And it is time to finally get to it. Like I said, it was one of my most anticipated releases of 2025. And I did such a good job of reading those in 2025, except for this one. I think all of the other ones, except this one, I read in 2025. So I did a good job there. And then the last thing I will mention is I am also going to continue reading the Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Cimmerian short stories. There's a read-along going along with that in the Discord that you can find linked in the description. It's me, Chance Dillon, Jake from Nerd Level Rising, a bunch of other people who are, kind of slowly reading along. We're doing about 1 story a week. I will say the stories recently have gotten significantly longer, which has put me behind for sure. I'm currently a week behind, which used to not be a problem because they were like 20 pages. Now they're like double that. Along with the last one we're going to read is going to be basically a full-length novel. I think it's 175 pages, so it's on the shorter side, but that's like novel length at that point. We'll see if I can stay caught up or if I'm going to just fall a little bit behind there. But I do want to keep reading them. I do have them, and so I want to keep kind of progressing through as we go. But those are my reading plans for May. I hope you have awesome reading plans. I'd love to hear what they are down below in the comments or in the Discord. But that's going to be for all. Wow, I cannot speak today. That's going to be all for me. And remember to read what you want when you want.